Okay. What are we taking a breath for?
Because I rang the bell.
So I present facts, and now we take a breath? I don't understand that. I mean, I'm good to keep going. I don't know why anybody else wouldn't be.
I see rising tension.
I'm not tense. I'm just presenting facts. That's all. I mean, if people are tense about facts, I can't help them on that.
It's fine. We have a question. We have a question. It's fine. It's fine. This is civil. Here we go. Someone in the audience brought up the Unite the Right rally.
Of course. So there you go. I got multiple civility bells there. Mark, what'd you think of that?
That was kind of fun. So was somebody from the crowd speaking while doing the civility bell, or what was going on with that?
There was a guy in the front row who was banging the civility bell. It was him.
Okay.
Yes. So he was just sitting there and he kept banging the bell. And then I just started to play it up as basically part of the show. Like, why is he banging the bell? I didn't say anything. All I did was state facts. And I'm going to use that line. Facts can't offend you. Someone's opinion with facts could offend you, but facts in and of themselves cannot offend you. That's impossible.
Was it the moderator and the guy in the front row that said we need to take a breath?
Yes. No, it was the guy in the front row.
Okay.
Who was civility belling me. I guess we'll use it in that term. But yeah, I was like, why do we have to take a breath? I don't understand. I presented facts. Facts can't offend you inherently. You can be upset with someone's opinion off of facts, but I didn't give an opinion off of the facts. I just said these are the facts. If white supremacy is such a major problem in America, then somehow Asian Americans cracked the code, okay? Asian Americans somehow figured out a way to crack the code on white supremacy because they make the most money in this country, and that's what this is all about. And to me, there's a direct correlation between how much money you make in this country and the fact that there is a focus in the household on two parents and also on education. And Asian Americans had that figured out better than any other group in America, including whites. So this whole conversation around white supremacy and white this and white that, well, somehow they figured out a way to make it work. Somehow this has been something that has gone their way. So it was a great event last night. I am glad that I went. I was on the fence because I knew I was going to be a man on an island, but I am also grateful that they invited me. I do think that the organization does important work here in Kansas City. And yeah, I think we had a good night for common sense. 913-408-7957 is how you join us on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. Streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Let's go to Derek in Elk Grove. What's up, buddy?
Okay, can you hear me?
What's happening?
Yeah, so you played the Will Kane segment yesterday that was showing black on white crime, right, versus white on black crime.
Okay.
Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what they're not showing in those segments is white on white crime. The numbers for white on white crime, okay, because the indicator for a crime is when you have a higher rate of potential victims. The reason black on white crime is higher than white on black crime is because there's more white people, okay? So they have a higher rate of victimization. That's why if you look at white on white crime, the numbers are going to be like 80%, just like black on black crime is like 80%, okay? Facts don't care about your feelings, all right? You're racist. That's why you put the black dude on there. Why don't you show Chris Watts murdering his whole family every day? Talk about how white people are evil.
Wow, you must have had some bender last night, Derek. I'm not even sure what you're talking about. I mean, if you want to go into the ratio, the numbers by ratio on crime stats, I mean, I guess we could do that. It's not going to go well for you, I promise. It won't. I went through those yesterday as well. Per capita offending rates per 1,000 people, all right? If you want to do that and have that conversation, we can have that conversation. It's not going to go well for you, I promise. I have them right here in front of me. But it also is kind of a sidebar on what we were just talking about anyway. But, you know, we can do that if you want to do it. Per capita offending rates per 1,000 people, look it up. It's not going to work out well for you, man. But hey, we had a good night last night talking about the DEI. And yes, the fact checkers also had my back last night. I'll share some of that with you coming up this morning on KCMO Talk Radio. And we'll be joined by one of my fellow panelists at 6:40 this morning. So looking forward to having that conversation. In the meantime, the President of the United States gave a shout out to one of our 2 states yesterday. Why did he do that? We'll tell you next on KCMO.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
I'm going to remember that night for a long time last night. Good morning, 620. It was great to have you here. The President of the United States giving a shout-out to one side of our state line. I will get to that coming up here in a moment on KCMO. We had a great night at the DEI panel that I was a part of at Rockhurst University. And what a show it was. Had to knock some common sense into some of these folks. Carl's an Independence. He was there. Carl, it was great to see you last night, my man. What'd you think?
You're great to see me? That means your eyes are failing.
Anyway. I didn't say you were good looking. I just said it was nice to see you.
Thank you. The guy that was on the far end by the moderator was making a comment about variable standards, and you came up with one little quip that just shut him down. What was that quip? It went so fast I couldn't catch it.
All right, so what you're talking about is the guy who was there. He was the wokest of the woke. His name is Graham Parsons. He quit West Point because he was upset that the President of the United States got rid of their DEI program. So now he's a professor somewhere else in New York State. And he was going on and on and on about how we need meritocracy, but we don't. He just didn't make any sense. And I mean that with all due respect. I think what you're talking about, and I believe I have the clip here, is where he was going on about, like, I think it was something about affirmative action. He's a fan of affirmative action, but then he goes on to say we got to treat people equally. And I said, you can't have both of those things at the same time. Is that what you're talking about and thinking of?
I believe yes. Yes, he was going on about affirmative action, but individual standards for individual people, but we must have a meritocracy. And, yeah, and your comment, that must have been it.
Yeah.
That it doesn't make sense. You can't, they're mutually exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
And he just shut down. He had no reply to that.
Yep. I think I've got the audio here. Let me play some of this for you. Thanks for saying hi last night, Carl.
Oh, you're very welcome. Bye.
All right. Let me play some of this last night. This is what the moment that Carl, I believe, is talking about. You're going to hear two voices early on, one of the females on stage, and then this guy, Graham Parsons, the guy who quit West Point and made a big stink about it and got a lot of attention for it. And then I come in with a zinger on affirmative action on the back end because he was waxing poetic all night about how much he loves affirmative action.
Equity is different from equality in the sense that you may not use the same measure for each person.
Okay, I think we need to tease that out then. You're going to achieve equality by having different measures for different people? I mean, because that doesn't seem like meritocracy then.
Yeah, it's limiting meritocracy in this pure sense that there's one neutral standard for each. But I think that's correct.
Okay, that's interesting because I dare say I don't think the majority of Americans believe that we should have selective meritocracy. The idea of meritocracy is that it should be objective standards for gauging behavior, of conduct, accomplishments, whatever, academic knowledge. I mean, how can we truly be in this country, how can we truly talk about meritocracy that's administered selectively depending upon what we look like or, what's between our legs? It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe.
Well, I'm not advocating changing standards because of what people look like.
Isn't that affirmative action?
Okay, let me back up.
He goes, I'm not in favor of changing standards based on what people look like. Dude, that's the definition of affirmative action. Changing standards based on what people look like. That's what it is by its very definition, bro. And that's where the other voice you hear, this woman who was very bright. Like, I don't think that she's some diehard conservative or anything like that, but she is a gay black woman who sees the flaws of DEI and understands that America is not perfect, but has come a very long way and overall is in a great place in 2025. Can it be better? Sure. Is DEI the way to do it? The two of us argued, no, it's not. And she was able to speak their language on the academia side better than I am because I'm just too plain spoken. I'm just a, commoner. But she was able to speak their academia language and also just be much nicer about it than I would have been. So I let her beat this guy up a little bit more, and I didn't really do anything. I just made my points and kept the night moving. But I think that's the moment you're talking about, Carl, last night, where this guy gets himself backed up into a corner because he's, promoting affirmative action, but then saying, no, I don't think we should treat people differently based on the color of their skin. And it's like, dude, that's what affirmative action is. And then he's got nothing. He just goes dead silent. And then he's got to back up and try to re-engage and put his thoughts together, and it just didn't go well for him. Everybody was very nice, but, we had a very good night. And then while I'm on this DEI panel last night, the president of the United States shows some love for Missouri. He writes here on his Truth Social, @RealDonaldTrump, congratulations to Missouri's incredible Republican state legislators who just overwhelmingly voted to pass their new, much fairer and improved congressional map. It was my great honor to win Missouri 6 times, including primaries, in 2016, 2020, and 2024, getting the highest number of votes for any office in the history of the state. And this new map will give the wonderful people of Missouri the opportunity to elect an additional MAGA Republican in the 2026 midterms. The Missouri Senate must pass this map now as is to deliver a gigantic victory for Republicans in the Show Me state and across the country. I will be watching closely. Thank you, Missouri, all caps. Make America great again. That was from Donald Trump last night on his Truth Social. So as we told you yesterday, this thing did end up passing the House 2 days ago. It now is going to the Senate side, and it will pass there as well, barring something totally unforeseen. But what it does is it carves up Kansas City, the Northland. If you're in Clay County, you're back into Sam Graves' district. Woo! I know many of you fired up about that after spending some time in Emmanuel Cleaver's district. The northern half of Jackson County is in this new 5th congressional district that goes all the way out to mid-Missouri. And then the southern half of Jackson County is now going to be part of Mark Alford's district. So that's the change in Jackson County that's coming. And the president getting his way. Yes, it's gerrymandering. Yes, we all know the game that's being played here. Can't sugarcoat what is really going on. But at the same time, the president wanted it done because he looked at some of these blue states, and there are red states that are playing along. That's what's happening here. Coming up next, you got a big win in the culture war. I'll explain coming up.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
You know, I give credit where it's due. A lot of people are still just blasting away on Cracker Barrel. I'm not. I'm saying to myself, you know what? Cracker Barrel, to their credit, is coming out and saying we screwed up, and we screwed up royally. They've changed their logo back. Good on them. They realized the mistake that they made. And yesterday they posted this. Here's what they put on social media. You've shared your voices in recent weeks, not just on our logo, but also on our restaurants. We're continuing to listen. Today, we're suspending our remodels. If your restaurant hasn't been remodeled, you don't need to worry. It won't be. With our recent announcement that our old-timer logo will remain, along with our bigger focus in the kitchen and on your plate, we hope that today's step reinforces that we hear you. I mean, listen, everyone's like ragging on him. I'm giving him a huge round of applause for that. That's fantastic. Literally, there are people who are just always looking to be outraged, even when they get what they want. They brought the logo back. They're not doing remodels in the restaurant. It's like, what? You won. That's it. You literally won. What are you mad at now? What are you possibly upset about now outside of just looking to be outraged by something else in this story for the sake of it?
And Cracker Barrel probably saves a lot of money by not having to do a bunch of remodels and all the free advertising.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what Trump said, too. Remember that? A couple of weeks ago, Trump's like, if Cracker Barrel's smart, they'll take all this free advertising and then go back to the old logo because people hate it and actually benefit from this. That's what they should do. And to their credit, they basically listened to the guy. I mean, he knows a thing or two about marketing. Say what you want about the old Trumpster, but he knows what he's doing when it comes to marketing. Now, I have not. There's one Cracker Barrel out by us there, Mark and Olathe. Have you been to that one off Strangline or no?
Yeah, it's been a while. We used to go there with my grandparents when I was younger.
Okay. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you have not been there in the last few years.
Yeah, I think it's been probably 2018.
Okay. All right. I know there's one out in maybe it's Blue Springs, one up north. There's a couple up north, actually.
One in Belton.
There's
south
one out,
of
yes.
49.
I was going to say there's one
163rd Street.
Down here in Belton I'm looking at.
Been there.
You've been there, John?
Oh, yeah.
Have they remodeled that one in Belton?
No.
Okay.
No, we haven't had enough time. In fact, here on Craigslist, it looks like there's 5,000 gallons of Cracker Barrel yellow here that we could, in an enamel indoor paint. Looks like that's on sale. No, they hadn't done anything.
We got to do a politics and a pint down there in Belton. That's what we got to do. Get it at the old Cracker Barrel and see what they want to host us out there.
I was out at Mojitos. That's right next door to Mark Alford's office.
Oh, that's right.
Good Mexican restaurant.
That's right. That's right. I love that. Well, okay, so we got 5 in the metro. Olathe, Belton, looks like this one's out in Blue Springs, and then we got 2 up north as well. So I don't know if any of those had been remodeled. I doubt we were on the short list here in the Kansas City area as they were working their way across the country. But if you're worried about that remodel coming to a Cracker Barrel near you, you no longer have to worry. And the one thing I keep hearing from people is, well, now they've got to fire the CEO. Well, hold on. I know, and trust me, I'll be the first one to sit there and say, hey, these CEOs for these corporations that are largely drawn to businesses in middle America are way too woke and out of touch. That's true. But you know what? If someone admits that they screwed up, if someone gets something wrong, I give them credit for that. If someone makes the change that the customer wants them to make, I don't really care what their national politics are. I give them credit for saying, I screwed this up. I made a mistake. So I don't feel that way. I don't really care about our background. I'm not just sitting here looking for some scalp because it would make me feel good. I don't want to see anybody lose their jobs. That's not what I'm interested in. So I want to make sure that everybody is able to come together, go to a Cracker Barrel, see the old logo, see the old layout, have a great time, and move on with their day. And have a great meal, most importantly, because that is what will keep people coming back. The notion that a restaurant changes based on its logo, based on the layout and a remodel? No, those are Band-Aids. What keeps people coming back is what? What keeps them coming back is the food. That's it. It is great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. Thanks so much for joining us on 95.7 FM. We are always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Scheduled to have one of our panelists on here momentarily. Looking forward to hopefully getting her on the show, as I do have that as the correct number in there, guys, so I'm not sure if maybe it's something else, but we'll see if we can get her on here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I had a great time on the DEI panel last night. So hopefully, we can get Monica on for a few minutes. There's a lot happening, though, across the region and also across the country this morning. And the President of the United States is continuing to double down on the possibility of going into another major American city. Here is what he said last night on the streets of Washington, D.C. This is what it sounded like.
We're standing right in the middle of D.C., which, as you know, about over the last year was a very unsafe place. Over the last 20 years, actually, it was very unsafe. And now it's got virtually no crime. We call it crime-free. We're going to be announcing another city that we're going to very shortly. We're working it out. The governor of a certain state would love us to be there, and the mayor of a certain city in that same state would love us to be there. We'll announce it probably tomorrow, and it's going to be something where we'll do like we did here. But this city, here I am, standing out in the middle of the street. I wouldn't have done this 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I certainly wouldn't have done it a year ago.
Yeah, the question is, where's he going? He says he's got a governor and a mayor that are all in on the possibility of having the National Guard help out his city. At first, I thought it was going to be Kansas City, because I'm sure that Governor Kehoe would have been open to that. However, when he said the mayor was also going to be on board, I was like, I don't think that's going to be Kansas City. Quentin Lucas had tried to walk that fine line, but something tells me that he's not actually going to be all in and doing a press conference alongside Donald Trump. That is not something that Quentin Lucas is going to be doing. He knows politically he can't be against what the president's trying to do. That's political suicide in 2025. However, he also understands he can't stand next to him in a press conference and slap him on the back. That's also not something he can do. So what do we get in the meantime? Well, we get the president teasing that there is a major American city that is very interested in having his help in one of their communities. And it's got to be, obviously, a red state, but it has to also be a city with a mayor who's open to this. I've seen some people speculate it's New Orleans, but I don't know. I'm not convinced it's New Orleans. I was hoping it was going to be Kansas City, but the more I thought about it, there's no chance. But that would be the wildest curveball ever. Quentin Lucas standing side by side with President Trump saying, yes, National Guard, come to Kansas City. It would be a brilliant political move for him here, especially if he wants to actually run for Congress. It would be so smart for him to do that. But something tells me he's not going to do it.
Daddy, you're my daddy.
Oh, that would be gold, man. That would be gold. He could drop one of those standing next to Quentin Lucas. That would be something else. Oh, my goodness gracious. Take it easy, though. Would you please?
Show some RESPICT.
We'll get to our 6 at 6 here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. We're always streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. 6:43. Top 6 stories coming up next.
On Wednesday's Guy Benson Show, Fox News chief political anchor Brett Baird, fresh off his interview with Justice Amy Coney Barrett of the Supreme Court, coming up at 2 o'clock on KCMO.
648, good morning. It is great to have you here on 95.7 FM, KCMO Talk Radio. Let's roll it.
It's time for the 6 at 6 on 95.7 KCMO Talk Radio. Number 1.
At the top of the list, the Supreme Court agreed yesterday to hear arguments over President Trump's sweeping tariffs, taking up a fast-moving appeal that deals with the centerpiece of the administration's economic agenda. In the meantime, the tariffs will stay in place while the court hears the case. So the president right now wants to see the justices overturn a lower court ruling that found his administration acted unlawfully by imposing many of his import taxes. This case now puts a major component of the American economy on the Supreme Court's docket, and it raises a fundamental question about the power of the president to levy emergency tariffs absent explicit approval from Congress. Listen, I've understood why the president's gone down the road of tariffs. We've talked extensively over the last 8-9 months on what his strategy is going to be here and why he's doing what he's doing. But, I always have felt weird about the fact that the president is able to basically drop these tariffs without any congressional input. You and I both know if the shoe was on the other foot, Republicans in Congress would be squawking about this, about presidential power overreach. So I'll wait to see how the Supreme Court handles this. I think they'll handle it fairly, whatever they do. And we'll wait to see what their decision ultimately ends up being. But they will be taking this one up.
Number 2.
Next up in the 6 at 6, the president shouting out Missouri on his Truth Social yesterday. How about that? Donald Trump saying that he's very proud of the state of Missouri for passing its congressional map that squeezes out Emanuel Cleaver. And now it goes to the Missouri Senate, and that is part of what the president put in his statement last night. He says here, congratulations to Missouri's incredible state legislators who just overwhelmingly voted to pass their new, much fairer and improved congressional map. Well, let's be fair here. If by fair and improved he means it adds a Republican and takes out a Democrat, then yes, it is very fair and it is much improved. But, he's basically just telling Missouri to play the game that Illinois and California and many others have been playing for many years. I suppose it is fair and improved based on those metrics. I'm not sure it's really fair and improved based on the state of Missouri itself. I mean, Missouri is about a 60-40 red-blue state, and now 7 of the 8 congressional districts, 85%, will be Republican. But what's good for the goose is good for the gander, and that is what Trump is going with here.
Number 3.
All right, next up in the 6 at 6. What's going on with the Royals now, man? Someone tell me. Suddenly they can't hit the ball, I guess. Is that what's happening, Mark? They lose last night for a third straight game, 2-0 in Cleveland to the Guardians.
Yeah, they're basically out of it now. They had to win every series going out the rest of the year, I think, to make it, and they lost the series to Cleveland. So, sadly, I think it's over.
All right.
September 10th, we're having the Royals funeral this year, which is later than normal.
Yeah, you're right. Normally it's like May 10th. So
Old Monday Night Football dandy Don Meredith, once the game got away from a team, would start singing, "Turn out the lights, the party's over." It's kind of time for that.
Well, now they can start figuring out what their stadium plans are, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we can focus on that.
Now there's no excuse because last year they said they were late on stadium information because they had a playoff run. Come on, guys. Now what's the excuse going to be this time? They're 4 games back in the wild card after losing last night. And, there's maybe 10. Let's see. They've played 145 games, so they got 17 to go. Yeah, they're not going to make it. They're not going to make it.
Yeah, a lot of injuries in starting pitching, so a valiant effort, if you will.
Yeah, they gave it a nice run.
Which gets you nowhere.
Yep.
Right? On the recliner for postseason.
That's right.
Number 4.
Next up in the 6 at 6, Overland Park Police clocked somebody driving 111 miles an hour through the US 69 highway construction zone. Where were you going yesterday, John? That's what I'm dying to know. Jeez, unbelievable. Oh, gosh. This is not the first time they caught somebody driving over 100 miles an hour. Overland Park Public Information Officer John Lacey said 111 miles per hour was unbelievable, and it's unacceptable in Overland Park. That's going way too fast. We want our community to slow down. That's the main goal of us being out on the street. We want them to slow down. I drive through that construction zone a lot on 69 Highway, and it is like a NASCAR track. So my guess is some guy's like, you know what? This thing's pretty open. I'm going to give this a run and feel like I'm Nick Sanchez or something like that, who, by the way, we're giving away tickets to VIP meet and greet tickets for NASCAR driver Nick Sanchez next hour at 7:45.
See what you did there.
See what I did there? So I don't know if this guy wanted to be Nick Sanchez. He's getting ready for the race up at Kansas Speedway coming up in a couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on there. What I do know is if I'm going 65 through that construction zone, I feel like I'm going 130 because of how windy and weavy that whole stretch is right now with all the construction. I mean, I can't believe the guy made it in one piece at 111 miles an hour.
Yeah, that person has to have good handles, I was thinking.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Oh, man. That is flying through that construction zone.
We heard
Holy
from
smokes.
Fred lately?
Yeah. We have not heard from one of our loyal callers in a while, although he might be checking in. Phones are starting to blow up on you there, John. All right, next up in the 6 at 6, here we go.
Number 5.
Dare I do this? The Kansas City Star has named a new top leader after previous executive editor's promotion.
Nobody cares.
Okay, well, it's news, all right? It's news, so I'm going with it here for a sec. Managing editor Andale Gross was appointed as the Kansas City Star's next executive editor on Tuesday. Here's the second sentence in the article. I know, you're not going to be shocked at all that this was part of the Kansas City Star's pitch for this news that they have a new managing editor. Andale Gross makes history. Take a guess why. Take a wild guess why he makes history for the Kansas City Star. All right. He makes history as the first black editor to lead the 145-year-old organization. Yep.
Well, isn't that amazing as they point their fingers all around the city?
I know, man. I mean, see, as I got off of the panel last night, it was a nice panel, but, I'll get to more of that this morning here on KCMO. The DEI panel I was a part of last night. Why are we breaking people down to their skin color? I mean, I'm sure this guy has a nice history in newspapers, and the first thing that they write about him in the Kansas City Star as he becomes the managing editor is, he's black. They think they're patting themselves on the back. No, they're being racist. The first thing you're seeing about this man is that he's black. It's just unbelievable. Jeez.
God save the Queen, man.
You can't make it up. You really can't. Last up in the 6 at 6.
Number 6.
Eric Stonestreet tying the knot. Congratulations to one of our very own here in Kansas City. Kansas City native and, of course, Modern Family star Eric Stonestreet is hitched. Made the announcement Instagram official yesterday, which also happens to be his 54th birthday. Stonestreet reportedly met his now wife, Lindsay Schweitzer, in June of 2016 at a Big Slick charity event for Children's Mercy, where she was a pediatric nurse. They got engaged in 21, and now they are married. Congratulations, Eric Stonestreet. Coming up, our politics at play in this Trump v. Blue City deal next. All right, let's be fair here. There's no doubt that what the President of the United States is doing when it comes to trying to tackle violent crime in major American cities is admirable. It's also very much political. It is a good thing for the President of the United States to have this clear fight with blue city mayors and blue city governors on this issue of crime, because the crime has been rampant for the last half decade in many major American cities. We know about the problems that we've got here in Kansas City. 2 years ago was a record year for homicides in this town. And while things have gotten a little bit better, we still have major problems. And that's true for a lot of major American cities. So this sets up a good political equation for the President of the United States. People have come back to the side of law and order. They have come back to the side of common sense. And while I do believe the motives for the President of the United States are pure, there's also a political game that we're all getting caught up in here. That's undeniable. Because the reality is this. I know he was elected to be the president of every single American, but let's be honest. Cities didn't get Donald Trump elected. They didn't. Donald Trump is not in the White House because of Washington, D.C., Chicago, or Kansas City. So while I appreciate what he's doing, because as I've advocated for a long time, the crime that happens in major American cities eventually will spill out and spill over into surrounding communities. And we've seen that right here in KC. That being said, the political side of this is also motivated by, I believe, a look over here at this shiny object. Let's all get caught up in this fight over crime and maybe not look at some of the other issues that really are impacting more people on a day-to-day basis. Let's be honest. And that's the part of it that I think we really actually have to have a discussion on. The economic side of what's happening right now in this country is something that this administration cannot afford to whistle past the graveyard on. They can't. And while no one thought, at least no one who actually pays attention, thought that Trump was going to walk into office and lower grocery prices tomorrow, that was the reason number one that he got elected. Economic pain during Joe Biden's 4 years in office, driven in large part by inflation and just a high cost of living that wasn't getting any better. That's why Trump is where he is today. That is reason number, I believe, 1, 2, and 3. It's economic. And that's still the thing that most of us think about day to day. Walk into a grocery store, go to Costco. Good luck getting out of there for under a couple $100 if you got a family at least. Good luck. It's very difficult to do. And you could say that about any other grocery store that you choose. You're seeing people max out credit cards. Credit card debt is right now at an all-time high, over $1 trillion. People are feeling the pinch from the last few years. And that's not all. In fact, largely, it's not Donald Trump's fault. It's not. I mean, this is largely driven by the insane spending of the last administration that got inflation very high and led us to a place where now we're just trying to keep up and recover to some degree. But he's got to be careful here. As much as like this is a nice little shiny object for people to pick sides on, when people think about their current lives, when they ultimately get home at night and they think about themselves and the top issues for them, most people, especially those who got Donald Trump to the White House, are not sitting there being like, boy, I hope I don't, God forbid, walk onto a bus in the urban core and get stabbed. Like, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking about their cost of living. They're thinking about their grocery prices. They're thinking about their property taxes. They're thinking about, can my wages keep up with the cost of living that I've currently dealt with? Those are the things that are top of mind for most Americans. And while the administration is, I think, winning this argument that they found themselves in, pitting themselves against blue state mayors and blue state governors, it's a nice moment for them. but it's not going to be the thing that keeps them in political power. It's not. It may drum up great culture war conversations. It may be the thing that for this week and next week, they get some rah-rah, the bases are fired up, and this is great attitude. And listen, I agree with what they're trying to do. But I also think it's giving them an opportunity to absolve themselves from what is serious economic pain that's still being felt out there by hundreds of millions of Americans. And that's where they've got to come back to that issue. They've got to come back to that topic and realize that is the thing that people think about the most right now in America. This plays great on cable news. It plays great for the cameras. It's a win for them. Yes, it works on talk radio too, and we've talked about it and dove into these issues, and they're important issues. But I'm sitting here and I'm telling you right now, they can't overplay their hand here. And my fear is that they are. My fear is that they're using this thing in Charlotte, this tragedy in Charlotte, as a way to beat up the media and point out their hypocrisies, which is great. But, Caroline Leavitt spent a lot of time on that yesterday during her press conference as the White House press secretary. And I'm like, guys, this is good to drum up the outrage meter. This is good for a 24/7 news cycle. But in the end, most people who are not hyper involved in the day-to-day of the news cycle are sitting there right now, waking up this morning at 7-Eleven on a Wednesday. They're getting ready. They're going out the door. They're going to the office, and they're thinking about their own situation. Most of them are not walking around this morning somewhere in America or in Kansas City and thinking about being attacked by some criminal. And that's what they've got to be able to come to the obvious conclusion on. And the sooner they do that, the more success they're going to have and the better off they're going to be coming up next year when these midterms start getting to the forefront of the conversation, because that's coming in hot. That's coming soon, whether we like it or not. 913-408-7957. That is how you join us. And text the show on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Stream us all morning long on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Bill O'Reilly was here yesterday. If you missed that conversation on confronting evil, you can find it on the podcast. Bill did a tremendous job on the show. And listen, I don't do a lot of book interviews because normally the author is incredibly boring. Most authors, frankly, are. Bill's not. He's a TV guy, first and foremost. That's what he is. That's what he does. He's an entertainer at his core. Most authors put you to sleep. That's not what Bill is. That's not what he does. So if you missed that, it's up on the podcast. Find it there on Apple or on Spotify. 913-408-7957. Let's go to Grain Valley. John, what's up, buddy?
Morning, Pete. I see what you're saying about the shiny nickel. I get it. It's the 30-second TikTok flashy story.
Yes.
But part of the problem becomes, and this is a hard reality, and it's tough for people to deal in hard realities. Economics, the economy is boring, and it's painful. The only way the federal government and our economy is going to improve is they've got to do something with, like you said, the out-of-control spending.
Yeah.
Well, you saw people lose their mind when 1,200 people got let go from the State Department. You thought it was the end of the world. If you were able to slash the federal workforce by 30%, one, you and I would never even notice it, and two, people would even lose their mind. We're spending almost $600 billion a month, $200 billion of which we're borrowing. Flip that to a credit card. You can't sustain it.
Yep.
And it is gonna be so painful if somebody ever finally stands up, because Congress won't do it, because they got to come back and get to their new districts and get reelected.
Mm-hmm.
The president, to a degree, is powerless on that.
Yeah.
And I blame Clinton, I blame Obama, I blame them all, because when Congress turns around and does either sign it or shut it down.
Well, if you're going to blame them all, George W. was no good on this. Trump 1.0 was no good on this. You're right, John. I'm up against it, man. You're absolutely right, though. And that's where, but here's the thing. If you're Trump, flood the zone with all these different things, all these different topics. People can't keep up. And then finally do what you got to do and slash the government. I mean, it's like they backed off of Doge because I don't want to say they got scared, but there was so much blowback. You haven't heard anything about Doge lately. And now we've got this potential budget deal they've got to figure out in the next couple of weeks, and that's going to be a mess, and they'll probably kick the can down the road with a continuing resolution, spend way too much money, not make any real cuts, and around and around we go. So you're right, John, but you know what? In part, I elected Donald Trump to do this very difficult work. And the political consequences, in part, be damned, because there's real pain and someone's got to do the heavy lifting. Someone's got to do the difficult work. And if not this guy at this time in American history, then who? Coming up next, I talked to someone last night who was at 1587, the new Mahomes-Kelsey restaurant down there. They had a special invite-only dinner last night. We'll hear from him. Farzan Vasugian coming up next. At this special dinner. What was it like? What is the restaurant like? How is the food? He'll tell us next.
listening to Mundo in the Morning on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Not bad, Mark. Not bad. 7:23 on a Wednesday morning. I'm talking steak, though, okay? I'm not talking football here. Not doing it. Farzin Vasugian is joining us. He's with the Chief Zone podcast. And the reason I'm bringing him on is because I saw on social media last night that he was at 1587, the new steakhouse that, of course, is set to open up next Wednesday, a week from tonight. It opens up, and you can't get a reservation there right now. I mean, they all went like the first couple hours that reservations were available for the first 30 days or so. So he was there. Most of us aren't going anytime soon. So, Farzin, good morning, my friend. What was the main takeaway for you last night eating at 1587?
Hey, good morning, Pete. Thanks for having me. I've got to say, it was a great atmosphere. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but I will say the moment you get in there with the atmosphere, it's beautiful. It's great. You see the renderings online that they've been sharing for a long time, and it looks even better in person. You've got to check it out. The atmosphere is wonderful. The music, the live band, it's awesome. The staff is great. The food is great. The drinks are delicious. I definitely suggest it for people to go. I know, like you said, they're booked for quite some time, but if you get a chance to go, you got to go.
I mean, what is the music? Are they playing some music in the background with the live band? Are they just playing Tech Nine on repeat? What are they doing?
Tech Nine on repeat would have definitely been an interesting choice for a steakhouse for sure. But,
yeah, I would have walked out. That's brutal. I mean, I like Tech Nine, but I can only take so much.
No, they do have a live band there, and I've got to give credit to the live band. That was actually like the MVP of the restaurant is the singer. He will actually leave the stage, and he'll walk around the restaurant several different times throughout the night, just singing, walking up, and obviously playing to the cameras because everyone's pulling out their phones while he's singing at different tables. But
hold on, Farzin. If the MVP of a restaurant is not the chef, the restaurant is screwed.
No. I mean, listen, the chef is wonderful. Don't get me wrong. The steak is great, but we got to show some love to the musicians here. I mean,
no one goes, Farzin. No one goes out to eat because of the music. Come on now. What are you talking about?
Oh, no. Now, listen, the steak is great. I'll tell you right now, I had the ribeye. My brother and I shared that. Wonderful.
Okay.
It's really good. I also had the Big Red Wagyu burger, obviously named after Andy Reid. That is really good. Definitely recommend it. As a matter of fact, I do want to share the drink menu because they've got some unique things on that menu that are related to Kansas City. Obviously, they've got a Power and Light on there. I'm trying to pull it up right now. They also have a drink called Jet Chip Wasp, obviously in reference to Super Bowl 54, Kingdom Come. And then the players part of the cocktail menu in reference to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. They have a Showtime drink and a Big Yeti cocktail. And then in reference to their partners, for Brittany Mahomes, it's Queen Bee. And for Taylor Swift, it's the Alchemy. I'm sure you've seen the video on Instagram. They give you the Alchemy drink, and then they got like this little aesthetic fire underneath the drink that they light up for you. It's pretty cool.
How are the sides? Any steakhouse has to have good sides.
Yeah, so as far as the sides go, they've got the mashed potatoes, grilled carrots, mac and cheese, sauteed spinach, and the mushrooms. I had the mushrooms. I love sauteed mushrooms. You've got to have those. They also have really good truffle fries as well. So those are the sides that my brother and I had when we went last night.
That's a good combo. Truffled fries and mushrooms. That's pretty good. All right, good deal. What else? I got a minute here, Farzin. What else do people need to know about the vibe, the atmosphere, the food that we haven't mentioned yet?
Honestly, they've got a great bar. I haven't talked about the bar yet. A really good round, square-sized bar. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Like I said, I know reservations are packed. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people want to know the prices and all of these things. I can't get into the details, but I will say this. If you are a family of 4 and you want to go, expect to drop anywhere between $700 to $750.
Okay. All right. I think we're done here. I think that's all I need to hear. No, that's outstanding work. Farzin, thank you, my man, for the insight. Anyone famous last night in the last 15 seconds that you saw?
No, those people were in on Monday, to my understanding. So
gotcha. All right, my man. Well done. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you, Pete.
All
Take
right,
care.
check out his podcast, of course. It is the Chief Zone Podcast, Farcine Vasugian. $700 for a family of 4.
Yeah, I'm getting it to go.
Yeah.
I'm getting it to go bag for sure.
Woo! 913-408-7957. Maybe it's good I couldn't find that reservation. More on the DEI panel I was on next.
Dave Ramsey here, and you're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now airing on FM at 95.7.
On the text line, Pete, if it's $700 to go to 1587, which our guest Farzin Vasugian of the Chief Zone podcast just said, he was there last night, I'll stick with Cracker Barrel. That's right. I mean, that is steep, man.
I'm not worth your Red Lobster money.
Mark's trying to figure out how to get out of there for like under $100. He's already trying to calculate the numbers. What's your best guess on how to do it there, Mark?
Yeah, it's going to be maybe not the Wagyu burger. If they have a different burger, I'd like to try that with the truffle fries.
You can't do the Wagyu meat. You just can't do it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to cost you way too much money.
And then obviously you just got to get water.
Yeah.
But I want to try the Big Yeti, but it's going to be, you know what?
I mean, the
$50
drinks,
for a drink?
I would say, I don't know, 25 easy.
Yeah.
Got to be.
For two people, though, $50, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
My OnlyFans page is coming in pretty solid this week, so I might be able to go.
Sign up for John's OnlyFans so we can afford a dinner at 1587 at some point in the next 12 months. Oh, my goodness. Man, that is crazy. When he said that, he doesn't have the prices, but he kind of got a feel for it. And he said, now he said a family of four. I think what he meant is maybe a group of four, because if all four of you have a drink or two, that's probably where it adds up. I mean, the kids aren't drinking, so I got to imagine with the kids, it wouldn't be quite that number, $700, but still, that's crazy.
Yeah, once you start getting a couple drinks, it's like, all right, yeah, we want to try this one, we want to try this one, and then it's like, oh, the price is getting out of hand.
Yeah, it's getting out of control, man. That's wild. Wow. Well, you know, if you got the reservation, good on you. Start saving up now. All right?
Yeah, you've been warned.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey's not going to be happy with you when all is said and done, but I get it. Once in a lifetime experience, I suppose. I just don't know what the marketplace is for that kind of a spot, unless it's going to be all the people staying at the Lowe's Hotel downtown who are out-of-towners and people there for conferences and things of that nature. That's got to be the bulk of that business. It's just not going to be everyday Kansas Cityans.
Yeah, people using their business credit cards.
Exactly.
Get paid back for that kind of a thing.
But that's dried up since COVID, man. There's just not as much of that business travel as there used to be. So, whatever. If the place goes belly up, Mahomes and Kelsey are going to be fine. It's really not going to impact them a lot. But that's a steep price tag, man. Woo! $700 was his ballpark for a group of four. And the Wagyu beef, I'm not about that anyway, all right? I'm not about the Japanese and the Australian beef. Just give me some good old Kansas beef, all right? That's all I need. A little Missouri beef. We don't need any of this Australian Wagyu nonsense. But that's a big price tag. Unbelievable. So last night, I was at this DEI panel at Rockhurst University put on by American Public Square. And yes, I got civility belled. I did get civility belled a couple times. I'll get to that later this morning here on KCMO. But they put on a good show. I thought that I made my case. I thought, frankly, I knocked it out of the park. And I don't say that, to be arrogant. My point is just to say it because I thought I was going to go in there and it was going to be a much more difficult case to make with people who really had well thought out, smart points on the other side. And to be frank, that's not what it was at all. There was this big conversation about white supremacy. And I want to play some of this from last night's panel because this was case in point as to why the whole white supremacy thing isn't actually a real conversation to have because no one on that panel last night could even define what the heck white supremacy is. Take a listen to some of this.
How would you define white supremacy?
I think it's more, so there's white supremacy as an ideology. Okay. Like I could be a white supremacist because I believe X, Y, and Z, right? Mm-hmm. But if we're talking about white supremacy as a social phenomenon, I think that, so that's what I think that's another form of white supremacy. It's a structure.
Okay, so going back to my life in Montana, large amounts of poor people, huge wealth there, but huge poverty. It's like a third world country in many ways, developing nation, excuse me. So when we see that huge wealth disparity in a state that's, again, 92% white, it's systemic inequity, in my opinion. Is that a reflection of white supremacy against white people?
white supremacy against white people. It might be another. I mean, listen, I don't know about Montana.
Same system. It's the same system that's affecting white people.
No, they're. Yeah. So I also didn't say. I didn't say this. We're living in white supremacy. It looks like this right now. There's all sorts of other structural inequities. Saying that there is such a thing as a white supremacist structure does not entail that white people are not oppressed or disadvantaged. Those are totally consistent claims.
I really should be getting hazard pay for having to listen to some of that nonsense last night. I mean, are you confused? Because I have no idea what that meant. White supremacy is an ideology, but it's a social phenomenon. And it's like, what is it? This is the problem with these conversations. No one can define it in, no pun intended, black or white terms. They're just these theoretical ideas that these grifters throw out there because they want to make a buck. Did you know the DEI industry is a $9 billion industry? And it's projected to grow in the next several years to a $25 billion industry. It is one big grift.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
And the grifters will continue to grift until they can't make any more money off of it. You just heard about a minute clip from last night where this guy, and, you know, he was a nice enough guy. Name is Graham Parsons. He famously quit West Point when Trump said they're not teaching DEI there anymore. So he got a lot of attention for that. He got written about in the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Atlantic and the whole thing. And now he's a professor at another college. And he's a white guy. And he has incredible white guilt. And he's asked a very simple question. What is white supremacy? And he says it's an ideology and it's a social phenomenon. Here's the beauty of this, though. The beauty of the grift is, all right, you can't solve something. You can't fix something when you can't identify what that something is. Now, if you live in the world of academia, that's fine. That's kind of more or less how academia works, in large part. But in the real world, you have a problem and there's a clear, identifiable way to how to fix the problem. That's not how people in higher education think, though. It's not how they operate. And that was something I came away realizing last night. I'm on this panel. There's two other folks, that guy being one of them, who work in academia, work in higher education. And first off, their points aren't salient. They never really make a point. They just go on these weird tangents that don't mean anything. And you can't latch on to anything. They're pretty words. They sound good if you're not paying attention or you're just kind of paying attention like most people in a college class. But there's nothing there. There's nothing of substance. None of it means anything. And when I was sitting on this panel last night, and it was streamed on their website, there's no way to rewatch it. I know some of you are wondering that. But there's just nothing that you could latch onto where you sat there and said to yourself, okay, well, this makes sense, or this is a fact, or this is a data point. What is white supremacy? That should be a very simple answer for people that are making $10 billion as part of the industry. But the beauty of it is you can't really define it, and there's really no way to solve it. So what does that mean? It always exists. It always exists, and you can't solve it, but they're going to keep trying to pretend like they can solve it by growing the industry and giving them more money. And it's one big scam. And that was on full display last night, John.
Can I transfer from climate change over to DEI?
Yes, it's much more profitable.
Okay, it's the new one.
Yes, you'll make a lot more money doing that. And then you can afford to go to 1587, all right? You can drop the OnlyFans and you can go to 1587. Yeah. So this was actually part of the point that I made last night when one of the panelists was upset with me.
You know, part of the conversation is I get the fact. I'm not sure what the fact means at the moment. And so I think that's the piece. Like, it's hard for us to step out here together if the facts are going to divide us in particular ways, because clearly there's
we are not going to be satisfied with this conversation, but we've got so much
to real quick, if I may, I'll take 30 seconds. 30 seconds on this.
20.
All right, I'll get to do it in 20. Who's got the timer? I don't want to get belled on this. But my point is, this is how DEI goes from a $10 billion to a $25 billion industry. We had this conversation on white supremacy. No one really has an answer on what it is. So if you don't know what it is and you can't define it, you can't solve it. You can just throw money out there and you can have your little programs in corporate America, but it's all nonsense. No one can define it. So if you can't define it, you can't fix something that's undefinable. But that's how the industry and the grift side of how we started this conversation goes from $10 billion to $25 billion.
You're not wrong.
Okay.
Obviously, we have fact checkers here.
Okay, all right, that's enough. Nothing I said there was wrong. And I'll leave you with this, and I said this last night. Somehow Asian Americans have cracked the code of white supremacy in America because they make the most money of any racial group in this country. They are the highest earners. It's not white people, it's Asian Americans by a wide margin. So let's maybe talk to them about how they cracked the code of white supremacy. It's a scam. Let's give it away. Your chance to meet Nick Sanchez, NASCAR driver. He's going to be here at the Speedway coming up. That is happening on Saturday, September the 27th. So, seventh caller right now will meet Nick Sanchez, 913-408-7957. Let's do it on KCMO.
from the nation's heartland. It's Mundo in the Morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
All right, who won the tickets to meet NASCAR driver Nick Sanchez, John?
Jeff in Blue Springs, number 7 this time. He's stoked, ready to roll.
All right. Congratulations, Jeff. We got 2 more chances to win the meet and greet with NASCAR driver Nick Sanchez and Tour the Hauler coming up tomorrow morning and Friday morning at 7:45 here on KCMO Talk Radio. Very good stuff. Well done. Do you see we have some excerpts that have dropped here in the last few minutes from the Kamala Harris book titled 107 Days. It is coming out in 13 days. What is that, 107 days? What's that, the length of time she was rocking a buzz for in a row? How does that work? That's probably the amount of days.
She worked at McDonald's. A gripping tale.
Yeah, gripping tale. All right, we've got the first excerpts from the Kamala Harris book, and she is soiling all over Joe Biden.
Come on, man.
All over him. All right, she writes here, and of all the people in the White House, I was in the worst position to make the case that Joe Biden should drop out of the race. Harris writes, I knew it would come off to him as incredibly self-serving if I advised him not to run. He would see it as naked ambition, perhaps as poisonous disloyalty, even if my only message was, don't let the other guy win. It's Joe and Jill's decision. We all said that, like a mantra, as if we'd been hypnotized. Was it grace or was it recklessness? In retrospect, I think it was recklessness. The stakes were simply too high. This wasn't a choice that should have been left to an individual's ego, an individual's ambition. It should have been more than a personal decision. She adds here, when Fox News attacked me on everything from my laugh to the tone of my voice to whom I dated in my 20s or claimed I was a DEI hire, the White House rarely pushed back with my actual resume. 2 terms elected DA, top cop in the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, and a senator representing 1 in 8 Americans. She is, the knives are out for Pops.
Suddenly she's a top cop.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I mean, she was a DEI hire. Literally, Joe Biden said, I'm sitting here picking a black woman. That's what he said. That's what he said he was going to do in the summer of love. So by that very definition, that's who he is. That's who she is. That's who she was. They go on the note here. Worse, I often learned the president's staff was adding fuel to the negative narratives that sprang up around me. One narrative that took a stubborn hold was that I had a chaotic office and unusually high staff turnover during my first year. So these book excerpts coming out from Kamala Harris this morning, man, she is just clearly going after Joe Biden. And I'm not even saying she's wrong on some of this stuff. It was very clear that the relationship between these two was highly awkward and uncomfortable and felt very forced. It was never organic. And now she's making it clear in this book that she had a lot of problems with her boss, and she clearly feels like her boss undercut her during her 107 days on the campaign trail. Wow. Well, that is going to be absolutely fascinating to watch unfold. I can't believe it. All right, as we close out the 7 o'clock hour, I did want to just say good morning and hello to somebody who I was on the DEI panel with last night at Rockhurst University. Monica Harris is here on KCMO, and I would say that Monica and I probably see a lot of national issues very differently, but she has a great story. She had a very successful media career on the executive side of things. She now is a Montana resident. And just for backstory, for those who obviously don't know, since you can't see Monica on the radio, she happens to be a gay black woman who was more aligned with me, I would say, on some of these DEI issues than she would have been with some of the other panelists. Monica, good morning. It's great to have you on KCMO.
Hey, Pete, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I just want to ask you, I've only got a couple of minutes here, but for you in particular, like, what was the thing that you wanted people to take out of last night's event and conversation around DEI?
Okay, thanks for asking. I think that's such an important question. I think that what I would like to emphasize is that DEI is not bad in theory, all right? Where DEI goes wrong is the implementation. I think most Americans, I made this point last night, even the vast majority of white Americans, really want to remove genuine barriers to systemic inequalities and ensure fair and equal treatment for everyone. But the problem is that DEI often shifts this goal from removing barriers to mandating specific outcomes and a sort of ideological conformity. So what happens is instead of equal treatment, we get initiatives and programs that treat people differently based on their race and really create a new form of discrimination. And that's not what America's about.
So then you look at it and you say, what's the answer here? And for you, as someone who admitted last night, like you were someone who got into college through affirmative action, but you think it's had its place, it had its time, and 2025 is a very different world. So is there a way to solve any of this in the short term or no?
Yeah, as I mentioned last night, thank you for bringing that up. I was born in 1966, got into college, Princeton and Harvard Law School at a very different time when there were much higher barriers to entry. We now live in a world where, in 2008 we had a black man elected president twice. Very different story. Not all discrimination is eliminated, but we've made more progress than we care to admit sometimes. But in terms of, to answer your question, I believe, and I'm a leader of executive director of an organization called Fair for All, but we believe the most effective approach to removing these systemic barriers is to attack them at their root, which is really class-based problems we're dealing with that affect people of all races and colors and backgrounds. I see this all the time in Montana. Lack of access to quality K-12 education, for example. So we believe that true inclusion happens when we create genuinely fair, merit-based systems while ensuring that everyone has the foundational support to succeed. That's true inclusivity and not divisive faux diversity.
Mm-hmm. Well, Monica, yeah, you were great last night. I really enjoyed being on that stage with all of our panel, but I was very impressed just with your life, hearing your story and your commentary as well. So I know you're heading back. You're at the airport right now. You're enjoying that beautiful airport in Kansas City, and I hope you have a safe trip back to Montana.
Thank you so much. I love Kansas City, and I hope to be back and see you too.
We love it. Thank you, Monica. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, there you go. Monica Harris, who was on that panel with me last night on KCMO Talk Radio. Fascinating stuff. 913-408-7957. I know some of you want to get in the conversation. We can do that. I did get civility belled. There's a lot to still dive into here in a busy 8 o'clock hour to come on 95.7 FM KCMO. Well, yes, they did break it out on me last night. I did get the old civility bell. I got nailed last night. Oh, well. It's all right. I was expecting it. Mark was preparing me for it the last couple of days. You know, it's kind of like a boxer trying to make weight. Mark was kind of playing civility bells in my ear just randomly. You couldn't always hear it on the air, but he was doing it to try to throw me off my game to prepare me for last night in this DEI panel I was on. So you prepared me well, Mark. Thank you.
I was going to say, I think it worked.
I think it worked great.
I'm like the backup quarterback. You go out there and you throw it around and you help the defense out.
Yeah, you did a tremendous job prepping me. People don't know about that behind the scenes, what was going on here. But Mark would randomly play a bell in my ear mid-conversation, try to get me off my game. And I was well-versed and well-prepared for that moment last night when I got nailed with the civility bell. And this is what it sounded like, and then we'll get to your calls at 913-408-7957.
Well, that's
that
what
might be an interesting thing to find out.
You're right. And then that gets into another point, and you can fact-check me on this, because this is the elephant in the room. Fathers. Majority of black families do not have fathers in the house. Fact, it's about 60%. For whites, it's about 50. Hispanic 30, white 20, Asian 15. And then on the other side, who makes the most money in this country? It ain't white people, it's Asians. So there's a direct correlation between who's in the household, having a father, your education, and how much money you make. And those making the most money in America today are not white people, they are Asian Americans. That's a fact.
I believe there's a correlation. I think one question has to be asked, and we're not going to answer it tonight, is the causation of why those black men aren't in the home anymore. However, let's get to another question.
Absolutely.
I think I'm offended, though.
Go ahead, Mary. I'm sorry.
Those are facts. You can't be offended by facts.
I guess I'm offended about the delivery of the fact.
All I did was state numbers. You can't be offended by me stating numbers. That's impossible.
All right, we have our first civility bell. All right.
I love it.
I really do want to get to another audience question.
Yes, a member of the audience brought up interesting.
Okay.
What are we taking a breath for? So I present facts, and now we take a breath? I don't understand that. I mean, I'm good to keep going. I don't know why anybody else wouldn't be. I'm not tense. I'm just presenting facts. That's all. I mean, if people are tense about facts, I can't help them on that.
It's fine. We have a question. We have a question. It's fine. It's fine. This is civil. Here we go.
I thought it was very civil. See, I might have been getting a little animated because of what I do, and I'm on a panel with people that are largely in academia, so their presentations are very different from mine. But I wasn't worked up. I was just presenting the facts, and then I played to the civility bell guy because he's banging his bell saying I'm tense. I'm like, bro, I'm not tense. I didn't say I was offended. I just laid out the facts, John. That's all I did.
Come on, dude. You know that's a microaggression to use the F word.
Well, I think I've got a new phrase I've got to lean into. Mm-hmm. Facts can't offend you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, an opinion off of facts, I guess, could be offensive because opinions can theoretically, yes, be offensive. I think that says more about you because free speech is a tenet here in America. But facts inherently can't, it's impossible. A fact can't offend you.
I don't like the way you delivered it.
If the sky's blue, that can't be offensive. I don't care what you think. A fact inherently can't be offensive. And I was thinking about it all night. I'm like, how could it be? It can't be.
It can make you feel bad if you don't like what the fact is,
yes,
but it's not offensive.
Yes, it can make you feel bad because your argument gets blown up, sure. But it inherently cannot be offensive. And, I'll take the civility bell. I'm cool with it. People asked me afterwards. The organizers were great. They kind of like quasi-apologized for it. I said, no, that was fine. And I said, plus, it's good for me. It'll be good for the show tomorrow, so don't worry about it, okay? It's totally fine. I was not offended at all.
Yep.
Because to me, the fact that I got the hook or got the bell at that point, that meant I was on to something, okay? That's as far as I'm concerned.
Target. Locked on.
Exactly.
Yep. Locked on.
I was right over the target. Chuck's in Leawood. What's up, Chuck?
Hey, Pete. How you doing?
I'm well, buddy. What's happening?
Good. Have you seen that? I think the DEI crowd, when they get together, they really think it's like the Eddie Murphy skit when he decided to dress up like a white person for a day. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
So he says there's two Americas, a white America and a black America. So he dresses up as a white person for a day, and then they film him going out, and he goes into a store to get a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
He puts some money down on the counter, and the guy goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm paying for this newspaper." And the guy goes, "Take it. Take it." And he says, "What I realize is when white people get together, when there's no black people around, they give each other stuff." And I think the DI crowd think that's what it's like, that we don't get up every day and work hard and go to school, that we're just giving each other things, because their commentary and the way they go about things, it makes no sense at all. So if you haven't seen that skit, it's well worth taking a look at.
What is it, from his SNL days, or what's it from?
It's an SNL. I mean, it's probably 40 years old. Yeah, it's great.
Okay, I'll check it out.
If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
I'll go watch a good SNL to get beat. Better than trying to watch something Heidi Gardner does that isn't funny. So I'm good with that. But one thing I learned last night too is that those who spend the bulk of their time in academia are so in their little bubble. It's like they speak their own language. They're not living in the same world as the rest of us. And that's why, I was curious to see how they were going to handle some of the things that I brought up. And they were all very pleasant people and nice people, but they didn't handle it well because they're not having conversations with people they disagree with enough. Like, the beauty of this is, yes, I have an opinion. People know where I'm at on the issues, and you can call in and debate those with me. And I don't know what you're going to say. I don't know how you're going to say it. I don't know what you're going to bring to the table. But we have conversations every day on the show. So that kind of sharpens your tools, so to speak, to be ready for those conversations. And that's just not what these people spend a lot of time doing. So they're totally on their heels on some of this stuff. Let's go to Wes and Gladstone. Hey, Wes, what's going on?
Yeah, hey, Pete. My question was, where did these people that were academics, what schools did they come from? And was there anybody on the panel from Rockhurst?
No, Rockhurst was not involved with the panel at all.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they were. No. Rockhurst. The venue was great at Rockhurst. It was at Pedro Rupe Hall, I think is the name.
Right.
So the hall was beautiful. But no, Rockhurst was not involved with it. The academics, one guy, Graham Parsons, he was infamously with West Point, and then he quit after Trump blew out the DEI program. White guy who got a lot of attention for that. New York Times wrote about him. And then the other person involved, Marianne was her name. Where is she? She is the Vice President of Institutional Excellence of the American Association of Colleges and Universities. So that's her background.
Quite a title there.
Yeah, well, it's academia, long titles.
Yeah, but I had tried to go down there because I was like, well, Pete may need some backup, but you didn't need any backup, man. You handled that very well. That was really. It was kind of scary, for lack of a better word, that they're chasing something they can't define.
Yeah,
and they're getting paid for it, which is an American thing, I guess. But
America's really a great place, man. And capitalism, works even on the DEI side. That's the dirty little secret. They largely don't like capitalism, but they're happy to benefit from a $10 billion DEI industry. So thank you, Wes. Let's go to Rick in Lafayette County. What's up, Rick?
Hey, Pete, I was just wondering who the guy was with the civility bell. Was there only one of them? And the fact that they had a man with a civility bell just makes me want to puke.
It was one guy in the front row with the bell. I'm not sure what made him qualified to be the bell man, but he was the bell man, Rick. So that's how it goes.
All right. Thank you.
You bet. There you go.
I'm curious on your take on this. Does the fact checker being present make it feel more competitive? It seems like it becomes more of a debate than a conversation when you have fact checkers there. Because you're kind of having to.
I loved the fact checkers.
Aha.
Right.
Let me share with you some of what the fact checker said here. So I'm doing this panel last night, this DEI panel at Rockhurst. American Public Square did a very good job with it. And when I brought up what I got civility belled for, right, when I said, hey, the real problem here is the success in America is really defined by two-parent households. That's what is the basis of defining whether or not you've got a chance to succeed in America. And Asian Americans make the most money in this country as a race, and they also have the lowest rate of single-parent households. That's not a coincidence. All right? It's not. And I brought that up last night, and I got fact-checked on it. And here's what it sounded like from the fact-checkers.
And then I have statistics on the median household income that was brought up. These statistics are from 2023. Asians were at the top with $112,000 as their median income, and then below that was $89,000 were white people who had non-Hispanic heritage. And then we also had the fatherless claim, where it was more, the claim was that it was more black fathers, households without black fathers, and that is true. 50% of black households are fatherless, and then it's 29% for Hispanics and 20% for white people.
Okay, we do not have time to have a rebuttal or reflection on that because we are out of time, everybody. We are.
And that there's nothing to rebut. Those are facts. You can't rebut my facts. You can't do it. There's nothing to rebut. And I like her. That was the moderator, Yvette Walker from the Kansas City Star. I've done Nick Haynes' show with her. Once again, very pleasant people. But there's nothing to rebut. I laid out facts. Now, your interpretation of those facts, I suppose, could differ. But I'm sorry, I don't believe that your income or your upbringing is the reason you walk away from a woman that you're having or had a child with. So you could hear a pin drop in that room yesterday when the fact checker stepped up there to the microphone and basically said, yeah, everything Pete just said was accurate. Everything he said was right. I literally had the numbers down to the percentage. Over 50% of black families do not have a dad in the household. 30% for Hispanic, fine, it's 29. 20% for whites and 15% for Asians. I mean, you can't debate a fact. And facts cannot inherently offend you. And I will be using that line. I think it was Ben Shapiro who coined the facts don't care about your feelings. Well, I guess my spin off of that is facts can't offend you. 913-408-7957. Did you see and hear the president getting chanted down last night in a restaurant? It was hysterical. We have the audio that we'll play for you and get to your calls next.
Stream Mundo in the morning on the KCMO Talk Radio app.
Get to what the president did yesterday after he was getting heckled at a restaurant, coming up on KCMO Talk Radio. Getting your calls in at 913-408-7957 after the American Public Square folks kind enough to have me out to their DEI panel last night at Rockhurst University. Jason and Olathe, what's going on, man?
Hey, what I want to know is, where can I get my Pete was right about everything bright red hat?
Oh, that is well done.
Such a nice man.
Thank you for that, Jason. I don't know. Maybe we can sell the hats and we can give you a bonus civility bell on the side to go along with it. I don't know, man. I don't know, but that's maybe we'll work on that with a KCMO logo on the side or something.
Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Jason. That's well done. That's funny, man. That is very funny. That's great, John. Oh, boy. Okay. So last night, the president's out and about in D.C., and he's kind of highlighting the fact that he feels like he's done a good job helping make Washington, D.C. more safe. He also is set to announce another city that he is going to go to today, where he says the governor and the mayor are very interested in having him there. So I thought it might be Missouri when he said the governor wanted him there. Thought maybe it's Kansas City or St. Louis. But then he said that the mayor also was excited to have him there, and something tells me that's not happening with Mayor Lucas.
I wonder if they borrowed the NBA's lotto ball thing for the draft to see. You know?
Yeah.
Kansas City's got 3 balls in there, and Chicago's got 10.
Oh, that would be great. But then you end up with people saying it's rigged, like this past year in the NBA. Right. They said the Mavericks got the draft rigged for the number 1 pick after trading Luka Doncic to the L.A. Lakers. So he's out and about in D.C. last night, and he walks into a restaurant. And somehow these young women are there, and they just happen to break out and chant with their Palestine flags. So I'm so curious how this works. Do these young ladies just happen to carry around Palestine flags in case, they're somewhere and they can just break out and protest? I mean, I don't know how this works, but if you didn't see the video, Trump is in this restaurant. He's walking around. He's with JD and obviously security folks and everything else. And these young women are at this table and they're yelling at him and chanting at him. And he walks right up to the table. You can't see his face, but he literally walks right up to the other side of the table and he just looks at him. And they're like filming themselves and filming him with their phones as they chant this.
Enjoy your dinner.
Free D.C., free Palestine. Trump is the Hitler of our time. I mean, it's clever, I guess. It rhymes. But I don't know about Hitler being on the side of the Jews here in this whole thing. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how that exactly works.
Yeah, it's funny how a good rhyme doesn't quite sync up with history, does it?
So Trump's the Hitler of our time as he defends the Jewish people. My brain's hurting, but I just want to make sure I have this correctly stated based on their chant. That's right? Okay, I'm just making sure I've got this correct, and I believe that I do. Wow. And Trump walks right up to him and just stares at him. And they've got these flags, these Palestine flags. And I'm like, what, do they just go to dinner with their flags in case they can break out in a protest? Who lives their lives that way? One of them's holding up a big Palestine flag. Free D.C., free Palestine. Trump is the Hitler of our time. Wow.
I'm firing the door guy myself. I'm like, dude, what the
Oh, my goodness.
Daddy, you're my daddy.
That's too much, man. It's just too much. You can't make this stuff up sometimes. Watching these people, it's unbelievable. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, we are going to have an in-studio visit with our good friend Patrick Tuohey from the Show Me Institute. We've got some of the big issues to look at in Kansas City and what we can learn from things happening elsewhere. Patrick Tuohey in studio next on KCMO Talk Radio, and stream it at kcmotalkradio.com.
Call Mundo 913-408-7957. Now on 95.7 FM.
We are in studio with our good friend Patrick Tuohey from the Show Me Institute. Welcome in, my man. How are you?
It's great. It's great to be here. It's great to see you in person. I saw you in New York on other people's shows, and I get nervous that you're going to leave the market, that you're getting wooed back to the East Coast.
No.
We've got a good thing in Kansas City. I don't want to lose you, so I'm glad you're here.
It's all good. Nick Haynes reached out to me asking me to do a show. He said, I know you did Harris Faulkner last week. I know I'm not as pretty as her and the whole thing. I said, Nick, Harris's show was just a warm-up to hopefully get invited back on your show.
Oh,
that's
very
all
good.
it was. So I appreciate that. By the way, I've been talking a lot this morning about the American Public Square event I did last night on DEI. I got civility belled. So you've done these before with American Public Square, and you have never been civility belled.
I've done 3 of them, and I've never been belled.
Shame on you. You're not doing it right unless you get civility belled. I am 2 for 2 getting civility belled at these things, man. What's going on?
Well, you're just a disgusting knuckle-dragging troll, and you can't behave in polite society. You know, look, here's my criticism of American. They've changed their name, but it's American Public Square now. Is that it is civility from a liberal point of view, and sometimes just going in being a conservative, you've got half a ding right there on you. You've got to learn how to play their game, but just the idea that you've got fact checkers there and somebody's in charge of civility is such a kind of top-down, technocratic, we know best, stay in your lane. It's despite their effort, it's not conducive to open debate. But having said that, you know, the topics I've talked about are pre-K in Kansas City, the streetcar, the stadiums. They haven't lent themselves to raucous debate. Stuff like the trans issue or DEI, like those are issues where people get really heated.
But let me actually defend them, though, and say, you know, the fact that you're on the panel and I'm on the panel and they're inviting us to places that typically we don't get invited to, I don't care if they're going to ding me. If I'm just presenting my facts and my viewpoints, I don't much care what they think about it. They've invited me there for a reason, so I'm not going to tiptoe around things.
No, and I have always said, you know, certainly with the demise of Ruckus on KCPBS, that I think Kansas City needs more public discussion, more open forums about more issues. We tend to not, we don't have enough. So you're absolutely right. To the degree that they are doing that, and to the degree that they're inviting people who are right of center, they should be complimented. I just find the whole setup needlessly bureaucratic. People can behave themselves in an open forum without silly bells.
Well, I will say the audience did a very good job. I thought it was going to get a little rowdy last night, but they asked the audience not to clap, not to cheer, and not to jeer either, and no one jeered me. So that's a win.
I'll tell you one event we did years and years ago. I wasn't on the panel. My colleague Mike McShane was on, and it was about education. And he got fact-checked twice in the event. One of them made it to the televised event. He got fact-checked twice and was actually able to fact-check the fact-checkers because they had cited one study, and he goes, I know what that study is, but subsequent studies have found this and that. And he is such a storehouse of information on education, and he was able to access it immediately that it was really impressive. And it was funny to see the fact-checkers getting frustrated with his pushback because he just knows his material.
Yeah. Well, I got fact-checked twice last night. One I just played, and that was on income based on race and also fatherless homes.
I heard that. I missed my exit this morning driving in because I was listening to your getting dinged.
I made you miss your exit. That's great. I love that. That means it's good radio. And then I also got fact-checked when I said early in the conversation that race relations peaked during Barack Obama's first term and have subsequently went down over the last 10-plus years. Now, why is left up to interpretation and opinion, but they fact-checked me on that last night. I'll play the audio later this morning, but they admitted I was right. Gallup polling, which I knew, showed that race relations peaked in early 2010, 2011, 2012, and it's been downhill, sadly, for the last 10 years. So I'll take it. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But they basically confirmed my fact check. So that's a good thing.
So do you get undinged or they take back a ding?
No, but I got a lot of self-satisfaction out of it. So
but they didn't give me a third bell, but I do have 2 bells on my bookcase in the basement. And again, largely positive experiences. So good for you. I'm glad they're making use of you.
They were great. All right, let me talk about your piece, thehill.com. Patrick Tuohey is here with the Show Me Institute. What other cities can learn from Kansas City's failed progressive experiments?
Yeah.
And this is fair, free transit, free buses, and then the subsidized grocery stores, 2 things I mentioned with Harris Faulkner last week on Fox. So you write here that it offers a cautionary tale for cities nationwide. We know that New York City wants to do this with the new leader in the mayor's race. What can they learn? Which one do you want to hit first?
Look, they're both well-tread topics here. I think the gist of it, and the third one, by the way, was defund the police, which we tried a few years ago. You know, as conservatives, I can speak for myself. I look at what's going on in New York, and I'm ambivalent. On the one hand, I love the city. I don't want it to go back to the 70s. I don't want it to go back to kind of the crime and the lawlessness and the garbage. So I don't want to see the city move in that direction. On the other hand, I think to myself, look, maybe we need this. Maybe people need to be reminded every few years that these well-intended government policies don't work. They just don't work. And again, maybe people have forgotten. Maybe we need to see it again. I don't want to sacrifice New York. And so I thought, look, let me write about a market I know about Kansas City. We have, left of center leadership, and they have stepped in every pile of dog poo walking down the sidewalk that they can manage. Fare-free buses, all the research said before they engaged in this that it was a bad idea, yet they did it. It was predictable, the outcome, and I predicted it 10 years ago. And so now the city has to clean up after a bad idea that everyone should have seen coming. Grocery stores, subsidizing grocery stores. Kansas City likes to subsidize everything. The mayor has pointed that out. So what's one more subsidy? But it didn't work. And again, I wrote when they embarked on it, this isn't going to work. And tragically, not only was it just kind of a failed experiment, whoopsie, but everything is worse off, right? So that shopping center there on Linwood and Prospect is worse off. Mm-hmm. They've had more crime. The people that the program was supposed to help are worse off. And we're all kind of, we have less money as a result of these exorbitant subsidies. And so the problem with, you've heard the joke, I've mentioned it before. How do you tell when a liberal is dead? Well, the punchline is their heart stops bleeding. Nobody accuses liberals of not being well-intended. The problem is their outcomes aren't helpful. And so when we let people want to look at New York City and be afraid of these policies, and I wanted to say, we've done them in Kansas City. Each one of them have failed. We don't need to repeat this in larger markets. We know what the outcome is going to be.
With the buses in particular, that's getting a lot of attention, especially in a place like New York. And I can't imagine with how bad it's been for us with the buses here, right? Where you've got bus drivers packing heat now because they don't know who's coming on the bus. Could you imagine doing that in a place like New York with subways and buses? I mean, that's a mass transit town. We kind of have a half you-know-what bus service here. It's just totally different.
No, you're absolutely right. It is totally different. And certainly the density in New York City and just the size of the population is going to make their experience with it different than ours. And you can say, well, maybe in a larger market with a denser population and more people, you kind of fix some of those problems. But again, the problems we had in Kansas City was that if you go and talk to people who depend upon transit, who depend upon buses to get to work, to get to grocery stores, they will tell you, I want better service, I want cleaner buses. They don't complain about bus fare. That's not their complaint. When you get rid of bus fare, what happened in Kansas City is that people who really had nowhere to go just used buses as rolling shelters. So people who could get on, because why not, get out of the rain or get out of whatever you're sleeping under. You start menacing bus drivers, as you mentioned. You menace passengers, and then fewer people ride the bus because they're concerned about safety. And then you blow a hole in the budget. And so we had to divert federal COVID funds to cover the budget a hole that the KCATA was experiencing. And yeah, we come out of it a few years later. We're going to reinstitute fares, and nothing is better off. We've got fewer drivers, fewer routes, fewer people being served because we've engaged in this years-long experiment that was just awful. So yes, New York is going to have a different experience if they engage in this, but even looking at a smaller market, if you consider us a test case, it didn't work out. And we should have known this because it hasn't worked out elsewhere.
And one of the amazing stats that I like to use is that ridership of the buses in Kansas City is not where it was pre-COVID. I mean, we're 6 years later, and we have not come close to 2019 ridership numbers, which you would think, it's free. Everyone loves free. No, they like quality at a fair price.
Yes,
right?
That's right. And again, the surveys told us that's fare is not what people complain about. But you get, and I don't like talking in terms that are ideological, but you get these, Robbie McKinnon was ahead of KCATA at the time, a position he had no business holding. He was not qualified for it.
That's a theme for that business, for that job, too, it seems like. Because now it's Frank White's kid running the show.
Yes, and I don't know about his background. I've lauded him in the past because he has tried to reinstitute fares, and, they've had protesters, and it's been very difficult. But for a long time, this is where he's wanted to be. So I give him credit for that. But in the past, it's been these progressives who aren't concerned about the research, who just say, hey, let's give it a shot and let's see what happens. Like, no, that you can't do that with public policy. You've got to make decisions wisely. You've got to look at the data because the risk is not just, oopsie. The risk is you've destroyed a vital service in Kansas City and blown a hole in the budget.
Patrick Tuohey of the Show Me Institute on KCMO Talk Radio. This is a great piece. We'll share it on our social media pages on thehill.com, what other cities can learn from Kansas City's failed progressive experiments. Well done, my man. Always appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. And stay in Kansas City, Pete.
I'm good, man. Everything's great. Life is great. Thank you for that. Patrick Tuohey on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. What If Wednesday? 3 questions coming up next.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
It is 8:51 on a Wednesday morning. You know what that means here on KCMO Talk Radio.
KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7. It's time for What If Wednesday.
What if, instead of having you on this radio station, there was somebody else?
All right, John, what is on the rundown, my man?
What if Trump overplays his hand on crime in American cities?
Well, it will cost him and the Republican Party next year in the midterms. It will. Not that I don't think what they're doing isn't the right thing to do. I think it's, first off, politically wise to make yourself the law and order party and candidate and politician. I completely agree with that. I think that every blue city in America should be raising its hand and saying, please, I'll take the help. Quinton Lucas should be begging. He should be on his hands and knees begging Donald Trump for help in this town. He made a promise back in 2019 to get the homicides under 100. Hasn't come close. He didn't qualify that by saying by July 4th. It was for the year. And we hit 182 2 years ago in a record. So there's that part of it, that the president is winning politically. But the man is in the White House not because of the votes of people in major American cities. He's in the White House because regular Americans, largely in suburbia and rural America, and to some degree in urban parts of America, said, the economy's not working for me. Prices are too high. Fix it. And while this conversation, this debate going on right now is kind of the shiny object that we're all latching on to one side or the other on, it's not the thing that ultimately when people are going about their day-to-day lives, they're saying, my biggest fear right now is potentially getting, God forbid, attacked on a bus like what happened in Charlotte. It's a great political thing to win on right now, but you've got to figure out a way to slash this federal spending, get inflation down. It's still sticky. There's still problems right now in the labor market. All that, and I'm not saying it's got to be fixed by tomorrow. I get it. We're 8 months in. But that still needs to be, and they've got to show that that is their issue number one, because that is the biggest thing that if they solve, if they fix, they are going to be off to the races next year. It doesn't matter what you do to some of these congressional districts in Missouri or anywhere else. They will be off to the races. That is issue number one. And the prices are still too high. And you can't expect people to just latch on to the culture war topic of the day and be satisfied in the end. It just is not going to work. So I love what they're doing on this, but I'm afraid they're losing sight of the reasons they got elected and the ultimate big picture. And the people that got them elected to figure out what to do when it comes to the economy. And while the markets are doing great, as we know, just ask Joe Biden, the stock market's not the economy. If the stock market was the economy, Kamala Harris would be in there today. What's next, John?
What if the 1587 steakhouse, according to our initial recon information, would cost $700 for a party of four?
Then none of us are going anytime soon. Fair? Unless your OnlyFans really takes off, John. I suppose that's the caveat here. Then you can take us all out.
Well, it's only tying fishing flies, but, some people are interested.
Hey, man. If you do well with that OnlyFans, I mean, we're going as a party of six. You, me, Mark, and our wives are going out to 1587, and John's paying with the OnlyFans subscriptions.
It's a good plan. We could all order something different and just pass it to the left. We'll blow a whistle every 60 seconds and just slide the plate over.
And you're getting the bill.
Or if I can somehow hit that $500 Chiefs parlay, I can pay for half.
Yeah. If you hit a big parlay this weekend, Mark, you're taking us out as well. But yeah, our buddy Farzin Vasugian, he was there last night. He got a special invitation for a pre-1587 steakhouse opening little dinner, and he hosts a popular Chiefs podcast in town. And he ballparked a party of four would cost $400 or $700 to go to dinner. My goodness, man! You better
That's big
hope.
city dining.
Yeah,
though,
yeah.
right?
That's. Yeah.
that's
I
big.
mean, that's even
Welcome to the big
expensive for
city.
big city. I don't know, man. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're doing half a dozen drinks a person, that's crazy. I can't say I'm shocked. They better hope there's a lot of business clients at the Lowe's Hotel, which is where the restaurant is, that are just going to say, you know what, take the credit card, put it on there. I don't much care. Not many places in this town, I think, are going to be able to get away with that, and I'm not sure that they're going to be able to get away with that, John.
I bust in there and say, "Where's the beats?" Jess and Jim's gives you beats. Okay, now what if DEI is an issue that can't be solved?
Well, then the grifting class will continue to make out like bandits. And that was my conclusion last night when I got done with this DEI panel. It's a $10 billion industry right now. As they said last night, it is growing to a $25 billion industry. And it is not because they think they can solve anything. It's because they know they can't. But you know what? It is a great grift, and there's a lot of money to be made in it. And that's why you can't admit that you have solved anything, because if you actually solve something, well, suddenly the jig is up, John.
Right? You can write a book on it, though, right?
Yeah.
It goes nowhere. You know, hey, I wrote a book.
Yep.
So did Dr. Seuss, right? It's not exactly the accomplishment it seems to be.
Oh, man. I love Hop on Pop, though. That's my favorite
Classic.
right now. That's an old-timer. And with that, What If Wednesday's in the books. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio, the big story that people are talking about in Charlotte leads me to ask you something else. Are we too buried in our cell phones? I'll explain, and we'll take your calls next.
Definitely in the car. In the car. And my phone, anywhere.
KCMO Talk Radio. Now on FM at 95.7. Kansas City's place to talk.
What is wrong with us? We're so buried in our phones. Our phones have become a shield for us. That's what's wrong with us. That's part of the social fabric that has continued to be ripped apart. And, it's just technology driven. That's what's happening here, John.
Sometimes I'm sitting in a chair, the wife's on the couch, and she's going through it, and I'll just text her.
That's brilliant.
What are you doing?
I'm going to start doing that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great, John. So this, on a serious and tragic note, we've all seen this video out of Charlotte, right? Where this man stands up and out of nowhere just stabs a woman in the neck in Charlotte, right? And it's become the political flashpoint of the moment. We know this guy was arrested 14 times, and there's the policy side of analyzing this story that you've seen play out ad nauseum over the last several days. What's going on with the DAs? What's going on with our judges in this country? The judge here was a total hack in this case with this guy who was arrested 14 times. You obviously have the racial component, a black man, a young white girl. There's all that. But something stood out to me that I think we actually have to dig into, and I want to take your calls on it, 913-408-7957. And that is that after this young woman was stabbed in Charlotte on that light rail, nobody helped her for 1 minute and 35 seconds. If I were to go dead air right now for 1 minute and 35 seconds, it would seem like an eternity. And if you've seen the footage, what happens? This guy stands up, he stabs this woman in the neck, and there's probably 4 or 5 people standing around or sitting there on the bus. And they're just kind of like looking around. And then most of them go back to their phones. And then after 1.5 minutes, finally somebody starts helping this woman who ended up dying from her wounds.
And they had to know something was wrong because there's blood dripping everywhere on the aisle.
There's blood dripping all over the floor. And we're all guilty of this. Like, I was flying last week, right? I went to New York for that conference, and then I came back on Friday. And I'm as guilty of this as anybody. I mean, what am I doing when I'm sitting there waiting to board a plane? I'm on my phone. I'm reading news. I'm scrolling social media. What am I doing when I get on the plane? Until the plane takes off, right? I'm reading news. I'm doing things on my phone. I'm checking emails from work. I'm responding to emails. And it was actually when I was going to New York last week, the lady next to me starts talking to me before we get set to take off. And I totally admit this was wrong of me. But my initial reaction was, why are you talking to me? Like, I didn't say that, but that was my thought in my head. And she was very polite. She was super pleasant. I was reading actually a college football preview magazine. I was just like, I'm going to read that. I was dying to catch up on it. And it's kind of hard to do when you got the 3 little kids running around at home and then prep for the show. So I was like, all right, I got a little time here. I wasn't doing my show the next day. I'll read this college football magazine. And she's like, oh, you like college football? And we had a great conversation. Great. She was probably, in her 60s. Great conversation. Super pleasant. And then she got a nice stiff drink once the plane took off. I was like, this is my kind of woman right here. She was outstanding.
I have a double.
Yeah, exactly. She was all into it. But we don't do that anymore. We are all, our phone has become our shield from not just the outside world, but literally things happening right in front of us. It gives us an excuse to not do anything. And then what do people do with their phones? If they're going to do anything, if God forbid something's happening or something's unfolding in front of them that's violence that they know is wrong, instead of interrupting it, they just film it. And I admit, I don't know how we change this. Human nature is what it is. I don't know how we change it. But when I see this woman on this Charlotte light rail go through what she went through and no one do anything for 1.5 minutes, that is a lifetime. And that was as painful to watch as anything other than the horrific act itself, John.
Maybe you're a former Marine on public transit, say, in New York City.
Glad you brought that up.
And maybe you step forward because someone's being a nuisance.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, what happens then?
Well, you bring up a good point with Daniel Penny, right? Daniel Penny saved lives on that New York City subway story about a year ago. And what happened to him? They actually ended up going after him. So I do get it as well. We've created a world where, God forbid, you do something, you try to get involved. What happens? It backfires on you. What happens? You suddenly become the bad guy. So I get that you're absolutely right. That's one part of it. But I'm not even saying someone should attack this guy because he's got a knife on him. He's clearly a maniac. But no one even stops to help the woman.
It was like it didn't even happen.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't like they
ran and go, whoa, not me.
Yes.
Nobody even moved out of the way.
I know. It's like, another Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's the part that I was just shocked by. And that says a lot about all of us. It's not a blame of any one person. It is, we are all guilty of this.
Well, they were too stupid to be scared, apparently, because they're on their phone. You're not paying attention, right?
That's the other thing. It's like, wait, why wouldn't you at least react like that? Like, whoa, not me.
Yeah.
It's just like, going back to TikTok. Like, no. 913-408-7957. That's our text line and our studio line on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. On the text line, Pete, the Daniel Penny effect gives people pause. You're right. I mean, that's absolutely true. But I'm not even talking about that part of it. That's one part of it. But no one even got down to help the woman and try to stop the bleeding. Rip your shirt off. Try to hold the wound down. Call 911. No one does that for 95 seconds. That's insane to me.
Yeah, it's not so much maybe you think about Daniel Penny, but it's just that the narrative has flipped inside out like we talk about, where the exception is somehow a rule, Daniel Penny, and then vice versa.
Steven's in KCK. What's up, Steven?
Yeah, Pete, I was wondering about this, too. They sort of talked about this a little bit on Laura Ingraham last night. But I watched that footage, and I had I think there's a lot of complicated factors here. One is that most of these East Coast war zone inner city destinations have no gun policies either. So these animals know that nobody's packing. If this happened in Topeka and God forbid Kansas City, there'd be someone with a stun gun or someone with a weapon putting this guy down when his back is turned. I mean, there'd be 3 or 4 guys going at this guy. So I think it's the Daniel Penny effect. I think it's the people simply are anesthetized in those East Coast war zones. They don't care. I think it's a lot of different. It's the cell phones, but it's a thing of I simply can't believe the cowards on that train. That man is walking up and down the cabin saying, I got the white girl, and no one does anything. He has to sit there in the cabin and wait for the cops to get him. I mean, it's absolutely. I don't think you can blame this on cell phones. He's sitting there over and over, admitting what he did, and someone in Kansas or
I
Missouri,
see what you're saying.
Someone would have beaten the living hell out of him. I'm sorry.
Listen, I think the odds are better. Charlotte's not your typical far left East Coast city. That's the other thing that I think needs to be brought up here. But I get your general point. But it's an apathy that we have for basically anything going on around us.
Yeah, I mean, it divorces you from reality. I see a lot of people walking, not on a sidewalk, but they're just walking, looking at their phone or acting like they're talking. They're not talking to anybody.
Yeah, I know.
They just want to look occupied and not like a sitting target.
It reminds me, and some of you are going to get upset when I make this reference, because I know some of you are going to say, you're just promoting your boy. All right, Bill O'Reilly's new book. Let me tie this to Bill O'Reilly's new book. John's laughing in there at me. But the book opens up confronting evil with the former Roman emperor, Caligula. And there's a part of this story about Caligula, who was the emperor, I don't know, like AD 37 until 41, something like that. And Caligula was a nut. He was a madman. And he would have, people thrown out to the lions in the Colosseum before it was today's version of what we think of at the Colosseum, right? And then randomly, he would sometimes do this. he would take people from the stands and throw them to the lions. Literally, he would point to people in the audience and have his people drag them out into the Coliseum and die by getting torn apart by the lions. And the audience wouldn't bat an eye. They would actually cheer it on. Why? Because they were scared that if they didn't cheer it on or if they stood up for what was right, they were going to be next. They were going to be the next ones that he said, take him, feed him to the lions.
Suddenly, Chris Martin and Coldplay don't look so bad.
That's true.
Right? But yeah, to your point, the peer pressure of like, hey, yeah, him. Take
Exactly.
him. Woo.
And then you had this mob mentality take over. And that's what we're seeing now play out in major American cities to some degree. It's an apathy, and it's also a mob mentality of, boy, I don't want to be next. I better keep my mouth shut. I better not help this person who I know is dying because, well, what if this guy turns around and does it to me? And that is a scary place to be as a society. And I'm sad it's where we find ourselves in too many cases right now. And that's a part of this story that I think is very relatable to all of us just going about our day-to-day lives.
That was Victor's tirade yesterday.
That's right. 913-408-7957. Coming up, Josh Hawley got something right, and he got something wrong. And we'll get to it on 95.7 FM.
It's Mundo in the Morning. Now on FM at 95.7. Set a preset on your radio. KCMO Talk Radio.
Busy week for Josh Hawley, trying to get him on the show tomorrow morning. Hopefully we can make that happen here on KCMO. But as always, I find something I agree with Josh Hawley on, and I find something I disagree with Josh Hawley on. I'll start with the thing I disagree with Josh Hawley on. So here's the story, Business Insider. Josh Hawley wants to ban driverless cars and says he'll introduce a bill on it soon. Yeah, Josh Hawley would have been the guy telling Henry Ford, hey, this Model T, can't have it, man. Got to protect my big horse guys and, all my horse farmers. He would have told the Wright brothers, you fly that plane, we're going to have a problem, okay? You get in that air, we're going to have a major problem here. No, the government's job is not to stop innovation. Stop. Stop with this whole, got to protect the working man. No, enough. Okay, enough. Stopping innovation is not the answer from the government because you're protecting me or you're protecting a truck driver or something like that. Innovation has been happening since the beginning of time, especially in this country. And amazingly, we figured out how to create new jobs every single time some major event happens that people are convinced are going to shake up the economy. I don't want to hear from the politician, please save me, sir. No, I don't need that from Josh Hawley. I don't want that from Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley's going to ban driverless cars? Come on, dude. No one's electing you to do that. And it's all under this guise of standing up for the working man. It's like, dude, you know what? The working man does better when you guys get out of the way. Outside of Teddy Roosevelt's tenure, at least that's the big one that comes to mind, when Teddy Roosevelt broke up. And this is also in O'Reilly's book. Some of you are going to get mad. It just comes to mind, all right? Things in my life that are of recency
Which
come
page
up.
do we lick?
That was about a page 105.
Okay.
It's about halfway through the book. But, this actually ties into Josh Hawley, who has written about basically wanting to be a modern-day Teddy Roosevelt. And he broke up all the monopolies and the robber barons and the Vanderbilts and the J.P. Morgans and things like that. So that is how he views himself. But we are not in that time in America in 2025. We don't have 8-year-olds working in mines. Okay? We don't have that. That was an important thing for America at the time. That's not where we are today. You don't need to be the guy that is perceived to be the one who's protecting the worker by saying you're banning driverless cars. Now, if Josh Hawley wants to take this to something else, I'm all in. Big tech. Big tech. Josh Hawley was hammering big tech on Capitol Hill yesterday, and I loved every second of it. He was pushing for legal action against Meta, parent owner of Facebook and Instagram, after whistleblowers detailed child abuse in their VR, virtual reality. So if Josh Hawley wants to be the guy who makes his mark somewhere, have it be this. Have it be the guy who's standing up to big tech and protecting our children from big tech. I am all in with Josh Hawley on this, and here's part of what it sounded like yesterday on the Hill.
Dr. Sadison, is it true that Meta does not want users under the age of 13 on the platform in any of their services?
I'd like to go back to the point that you made in response to this, is that if they did, their value, their engagement, their profits would go through the floor. In this quote, if is doing a lot of work because they have taken no substantive efforts to make sure that they're understanding that there are kids under 13. It's a lie by avoidance, and Meta knows it.
It's a lie by avoidance. So in other words, Mark Zuckerberg, when he tested, this is last year, I want to emphasize. So it wasn't 10 years ago. This is barely 10 months ago. This was just last year when Mark Zuckerberg says, we don't want people who are under age 13. They're not on our platform. And your testimony here today is, in fact, they're rampant on the platform, and Meta is specifically targeting them. Isn't that your testimony?
Yes, that's correct.
So Mark Zuckerberg has, once again, deliberately misled and lied to the American people. I mean, this is really, really extraordinary.
So Josh Hawley is politically trying to put himself on the opposite side of the big tech titans of today in America. That's his strategy. But on this one, I want him to go all the way. So that was two former Meta researchers who told a Senate panel yesterday the company buried child harm evidence in virtual reality, killed age verification studies, and let AI chatbots flirt with kids. This is something that Meta should be exposed for top to bottom. There should be federal legislation on this issue. I've long believed that we have got to have federal laws around kids using social media. Their brains are not developed. They should not be using it. Heck, you can't drive a rental car till you're 25. You can't buy a pack of cigarettes. You can't drink. You can't use social media. If this is Josh Hawley's thing, I am all in on it. But please don't be the guy that's stopping driverless cars. Please don't do it. News in 2 minutes. Our caller of the day is coming up next. It's a good one.
If it's happening in KCMO, it's on KCMO 95.7 FM. Here's Pete Mundo.
Our caller of the day was tied into, well, the most fun we've had on something I've done lately, and that was the DEI panel I was a part of last night with the American Public Square folks. We were at Rockhurst University. We had a great crowd turnout. It was myself, a couple of academia folks, this one guy from West Point who infamously quit because he was upset that Trump got rid of DEI. He wrote a big piece about it in the New York Times. It's funny, too, because I say this with all due respect, but I read some of the stuff from the panelists, and I just wanted to get a feel for what their perspectives were. I mean, I knew they were going to lean the other way, but I was just curious to see, what their perspectives were. And they write in these big, eloquent ways with these big, verbose words. And oh my goodness, it's so impressive. And then we get on stage and they're long-winded. They don't make their points. You don't really know what they're trying to say. And it's like, man, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I mean, it was like shooting fish in a barrel, John. It was too easy, to be honest.
Yeah, I love these stupid buzzwords that people like to repeat. Sustainability.
Yeah, systemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of that last night.
The macro view.
Yeah. There was a lot of that.
All big talk.
Oh, my gosh. But, then you realize, and I sit there and I listen, and I'm like, they're not saying anything. They're not making a point. They're just speaking and filling air is all they're doing. But that is academia in large part. So I'll play some audio from last night that I haven't yet played this morning. But first, I want to set up our caller of the day with the most, I guess it was the hottest moment of the night last night when I brought up the elephant in the room and I got civility belled for it. Because I said, instead of talking about DEI and how we try to create this equitable system, and what we need to do is promote fathers in the home. There is a direct correlation between fathers being in the home and your education levels and your income. I didn't pull this part of the audio, but I prefaced all this by asking a very simple question. I said, would you rather grow up in America today in a black household, 2 parents in the house with an income of 6 figures for the household? Or would you rather be in America in 2025 in a white household, single mom below the poverty line? Which household in America today would you want to grow up in? It's a very simple answer, the black household. So I asked this last night of the panelists, and the guy from West Point, formerly of West Point, is like, I don't know what that matters. I said, no, you don't want to answer the question. And you don't want to answer the question because you know that the answer to the question is the black household, and it blows up your entire narrative about race. And then I got into the numbers, and that's when I got civility belled. When I said the majority of black kids in this country are growing up without a father. That number for Hispanics is 30%, 20% for whites, 15% for Asians. Conversely, household income, highest for Asians, second highest for whites, then Hispanics, then blacks. There's a direct correlation between all this stuff. And that's what got me belled. So I loved it. Then I got fact-checked, and the fact-checkers admitted, well, Pete's right.
And then I have statistics on the median household income that was brought up. These statistics are from 2023. Asians were at the top with $112,000 as their median income, and then below that was $89,000 were white people who had non-Hispanic heritage. And then we also had the fatherless claim, where the claim was that it was more black fathers, households without black fathers, and that is true. 50% of black households are fatherless, and then it's 29% for Hispanics and 20% for white people.
Okay, we do not have time to have a rebuttal or reflection on that because we are out of time, everybody. We are.
Yeah, there's no rebuttal to my facts. Mark?
The guy in the front row, he's just mumbling to himself.
How dare you?
Yeah, the guy who's civility belling me. That wasn't the only fact check, though, that I got last night. I'll tell you the other one after our caller of the day.
It's the Mundo in the Morning Caller of the Day on KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7.
Getting your calls in at 913-408-7957 after the American Public Square folks kind enough to have me out to their DEI panel last night at Rockhurst University. Jason and Aletha, what's going on, man?
Hey, what I want to know is, where can I get my Pete was right about everything bright red hat?
Oh, that is well done.
Such a nice man.
Thank you for that, Jason. I don't know. Maybe we can sell the hats and we can give you a bonus civility bell on the side to go along with it. I don't know, man. I don't know, but that's maybe we'll work on that with a KCMO logo on the side or something.
Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you, Jason. That's well done. There you go. That was great. That was outstanding. Well done by Jason and Aletha this morning. Oh, boy, John, that's good stuff.
Hearing that again made me wonder, did anybody want to shoot the messenger when the fact checker verified what you said?
I don't know. But I'll tell you something.
Probably not, because we ran out of time.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if that will make people reluctant now. You got to watch out for this Mundo guy. He knows what he's talking about.
He actually has facts. That's not good for us. So I'll tell you what, though. As I'm walking out last night, I talked to a bunch of folks afterwards, was happy to do it. But I'm walking out the door, and at that point, I'm just like trying to get out of there and make my beeline. I don't want to get heckled or something like that.
All right, you're back to civilian.
I get to the door, and she was probably about a 45-year-old black woman and her daughter stop me, and they say, "Thank you for your commentary."
Well,
said, "No problem. Happy to do it." Shook my hand, big smile on their faces. I was like, "Okay, cool. That's great." I'm good with that. It was a good group last night. It was a pretty diverse group. There were whites, blacks, and Hispanics, and all Kansas Cityans all across the board. Demo was maybe a little bit older, but that's to be expected on a Tuesday night. I wasn't surprised by that. But they had a very good crowd. So the other fact check I got that I was right about was when they fact checked me on race relations peaking during Barack Obama's first term. I mean, I've talked about this on the air. I've gone through the Gallup data that shows race relations peaked during Obama's first term. And then they went rapidly downhill after that. His second term is when things started going downhill. And I have an opinion as to why. I'll get to that here in a second. But here was the fact check where the guy has to get up there and say, yep, he was right about that too.
One is that people had questions about Pete had talked about earlier about how race relations peaked in Obama's first term and then declined during his second term. And I think that is a correct statement. There are data from Gallup polls and Pew Research Survey that shows that among both black and whites, which is the way they broke it down, their perceptions of race relations did increase to a peak right maybe around the beginning of Obama's second term. It was about 60-70% thought race relations were good, and then it did decline over his second term, and then continued to decline in Donald Trump's first term to the point where the levels were about half of what they previously had been, and they have then somewhat rebounded since then. A couple things about that. One is those are perceptions of race relations, right? It's not a measure of what race relations actually are.
All right, we don't need to qualify it with that BS, but anyway, the point is I was right about that too. It was early in the conversation when I said DEI actually set us back with race relations because it pitted races against each other. In a zero-sum game of college admission, hiring for jobs, if you are giving someone basically extra credit for their skin color, then you have to inherently ding somebody for their skin color. That's the only way it works. If you are admitting kids to a college, you have what? 1,000 spots, whatever the number is. Say you got 1,000 spots for the class. If you're saying this person gets the benefit of the doubt because of their skin color, then somebody else has to be docked due to their skin color. It's the only way the system works. And that has set back race relations. The other thing was, Obama didn't help in the second term at all. You go back to that period of time, and you had Michael Brown over in St. Louis. That was a flashpoint, right? Where suddenly Obama got in on that. He leaned in to the left side on that, and that hurt race relations in a major way. And then you add in DEI, you get to George Floyd. All this stuff snowballed. It wasn't one thing Now, that's where you can have difference of opinion on why race relations have gotten worse the last 10 years. But the facts, once again, are the facts, John.
Maybe the match was lit with the Trayvon Martin
Yes,
thing,
and
I
that
think.
too. Absolutely. Trayvon Martin was a part of this as well when Obama said, he could have been my son.
Mm-hmm.
So those things stacked on top of each other over the last 10 years made race relations worse. But they did peak based on the polling in this country during Obama's first term because people were hoping for like a post-racial America. That's what people wanted. And honestly, I thought Obama could have been that figure. He had a chance to be that figure, and then he let the whole thing crash and burn because it was better for him politically. And he was looking out for himself. And the problem is, if we actually admitted that we're in a pretty damn good place, race relations-wise, what are the grifters and the hucksters going to do? If we ever have this perceived solving of the problem, they have nothing to do. They have no way to make money. They have no way to be important. There's nothing next. There always has to be something next. There always has to be something that they solve because if they don't have it, they have no way to go about making money and furthering their narrative.
Right? You can catch more flies with honey. So to your point, if they were just to say, yeah, we're doing all right, but we need to do better. Well, we can all agree with that.
Yep. And one thing I said last night, too, that I want to be very clear about on the show, like, yes, racism does exist. There are racists because everyone's a sinner. But we are in a very different place in America in 2025 than we were in 1965, than we were in 1925, than we were in 1865. And not being able to acknowledge that and look at the strides and the improvements that we've made and say meritocracy is the best way forward and the only diversity that should matter is diversity of thought is lost on way too many people. I want to wrap up the show with this. And don't worry, the kids don't need earmuffs. But what is the going rate from your tooth fairy? I'm just curious. Next.
Hey, it's Kevin Keatsman. Stick around. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock right after Pete Mundo on KCMO 95.7 FM.
We'll put a bow on this show this morning on KCMO with your commentary as well. 913-408-7957. Mike in Overland Park was at Rockhurst last night at the DEI event. Did I catch you last night, Mike, at the end or no?
No, I didn't see it, but this is the Civility Bell rascal last night that got dinged by that fella in the front rows wearing an NPR logo on his shirt.
Yeah. I don't know what shirt he was wearing. I couldn't see that, but I'll take your word for it.
Hey, you did a great job last night. My wife and I were there, and I thought you kind of hit the nail on the head. And you left your panel kind of unprepared for a lot of your comments.
You know, which surprised me because I didn't think any of my stuff was like earth-shattering. But it goes to show you if you spend too much time in your own bubble, like nothing I said was honestly anything that was all that new. It was like stuff that we've talked about on the show. I mean, it was fact-based and fact-driven. But, you know, stuff I've said dozens of times here on KCMO. That's what surprised me because you're right, Mike. They seem unprepared for it, and I don't know why they were unprepared for it. But they had no comebacks to a lot of it.
No, you did a great job. And I have just one other question. Do you see this kind of as a launching pad for an invitation to The View?
No, I don't. I don't. Okay. I think I'd have to put on 100 pounds to be invited on anyway, based on, you know, what I'm seeing there. But no, I don't think so. Thank you, though, Mike. That's nice of you. No, I'm good. Oh, my goodness. But, hey, if you missed it, this morning I had on one of the panelists that I was with. Her name's Monica Harris. And I didn't have this on my bingo card, that the woman that I would be most aligned with was a gay black woman from Montana who spent her career in New York City as a media executive. That was not, now, I don't think she's some rock-ribbed conservative, but I was like, wow. So I let her kind of beat up the woke white guys a little bit because I just figured it looked better coming from her than me anyway. And she knew her stuff, and she could speak their language. She had spent some time, I think, in like think tank academia world, and I don't speak that language. But she did, and she did it really, really well and really effectively. All right, Mark, what's the tooth fairy bring at your house there, big fella?
Usually for the first tooth, I go $5, and then I go down to $1 after that.
Oh, that's nice. $5 for the first one, then down to $1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if the dentist pulls it, I'm not giving you money because I had to pay for that.
Well, you know, you don't give money anyway. It's the tooth fairy.
That's true. Yeah. That's what the tooth fairy pays for the dental.
Yes. Well, no. Okay. So the tooth fairy brings $5 for the first tooth is what you're telling me.
Yes.
All right. And then $1 every tooth after that.
That's right.
Okay. And then if the tooth is taken out by the dentist, you write a note to the tooth fairy and you say, hey, don't come tonight.
Yeah, the tooth fairy doesn't know where to go at that point.
Okay. All right. Because the tooth didn't come out naturally.
Yes.
All right. Well, Claire lost her third tooth yesterday in school. She said that she was eating a snack and she starts chewing. She's like, oh, this thing's hard. What's that? And it was her tooth. So she goes down to the nurse's office and cleans out her mouth and brings home her third tooth. And I heard from Kate this morning that the tooth fairy brought $1. So good job on the tooth fairy. $1 from the tooth fairy. I mean, you start stacking it up, man. You can't go much higher than that. You do 5 every time, you're going to be in for it with 3 kids.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough out there for the tooth fairy.
It is. I mean, you know, inflation's impacting the tooth fairy. Good thing gas prices are down thanks to Trump, though, right? All right, we're out of time. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. You can always stream us on the app or check us out at kcmotalkradio.com. Kevin Keatsman, Uncanceled, is coming up next from 10 to 11. We're back tomorrow morning. We'll talk to you then.